Real quick before we start, I just wanted to mention that we do these podcast recordings live on stream. We stream every single Wednesday at 6 p.m. EST on Twitch. It's an opportunity for you guys to come hang out, interact, and ask your questions directly to all of our guests. We also have a Discord if you want to keep talking more about deathcore and metalcore, or simply to keep up with everything that we're doing, upcoming guests, and all that jazz. I'll leave links to both of these things in the description wherever you are watching or listening. And with that out of the way, please enjoy this episode. Welcome to another episode of the Brutality podcast. My name is Dom, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Yan. This week, we have a special extra stream for you guys. We typically do one show a week every Wednesday, 6 p.m. EST, but this week we have an extra stream because we have a somewhat of a legend in here today, and super excited to get to talk to Eyal Levi. Welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. Of course. While we were kind of scheduling things out, I guess you mentioned last week you were Milwaukee Metal Fest. Did that go down? Did you go ultimately?
I couldn't.
Oh no.
I was going to, but I ended up not being able to go. But I heard it was cool. It was cool.
I mean, the lineup was badass. So I'd assume there's a lot of cool stuff, even some newer bands that were on there. That it was a nice eclectic mix of old and new on that lineup.
I'm just glad it's back. That's really, and then hearing that like Mayhem might be coming back. It's whenever I hear that the metal economy is booming and that there are fests in the U.S. that people actually go to. It's great because, we all hear about European fests being the be all end all, but we've had great fests in the US traditionally. A lot of them just went away. So it's good to see them coming back. Summer Slaughter too, even though I guess there's some controversy about the lineup. I don't care. I'm just glad it's back.
Yeah, there's just a festival, regardless of the name. It's like a lot of bands on a bill, and especially like you said, like I think Mayhem and Summer Slaughter are two things, like a traveling festival specifically. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to put together a lineup for one, 2, 3 days, but to have something travel for a full month with that many bands and big bands and stuff too, it's cool. It's cool to see for sure.
Well, I see Mayhem as kind of like they carry the torch for Ozfest. And I don't think Ozfest will come back. I just don't see that happening. So Mayhem was kind of what kept that going. And there were so many heavy bands from the underground, mainstream heavy, like all walks of heavy life that basically had their careers cemented because of that. So it's great to see that coming back.
I think those kind of fests specifically too were kind of always the gateway festivals, I'd like to say, like a lot of festival bands that are maybe more accessible. We have a bunch of bands that fit that specific, not genre, but that kind of description, like more gateway type bands that are huge, that are massive right now, but they're not doing any of these festivals because they don't really exist all that much. Right. So like, I'm actually really curious to see what a festival like Mayhem, like what that lineup is going to look like today, right? Because it's been so long.
Yeah, and it's really, really important for the future of heavy music because I think everybody shares that thought of what's going to happen when Metallica retires and Slipknot retires and all these huge bands that basically fund life for everybody else. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen when they're gone? But it's through festivals like Mayhem that the next generation of those bands are going to come around. I think we're already seeing one of them in Sleep Token, maybe.
Absolutely. Sure.
And it seems like Bring Me the Horizon is also kind of like going into that territory. But love them or hate them, we need those bands, those arena level bands in metal for the good of everything, all the way down to the most underground stuff.
Yeah, I mean those are the bands that people are hearing about metal from for the first time, right?
Yep.
Like that's how we get like it's cool to have the small underground bands and the small local scenes and all that stuff, but that's not what really drives new people into the genre, right? So
No.
it's always like those big arena tours, like those types of bands, but then the festivals as well, as you were saying. Like absolutely kind of tells you I guess the strength of an industry when that stuff is there or not, you know?
Yeah. Another thing that I thought was really cool. I don't know if you've seen the stages or the venues that Amon Amarth is playing on this tour they're on right now with Cannibal Corpse.
No, I haven't seen.
Like they played Red Rocks. They played
Oh,
Red Rocks.
Shoot. Okay.
I mean, that's like a Mayhem Fest main stage.
Yeah.
They're playing not the biggest arenas, but they're playing arenas, like straight up death metal in arenas as the headliners. It's crazy. It's awesome.
I think even honestly, a band like Sleep Token, you know, is so and even Bring Me the Horizon to a certain extent. Like it's so eclectic. I almost wouldn't have fathomed those bands being the big breakout bands that are doing these arena tours, right? Like because they're so wild, they're so wacky, they're always reinventing themselves, like all this sort of stuff that I would have assumed maybe deterred fans from maybe getting into bands like that, but no, it's the opposite. It's the complete opposite that we're seeing, and those are the bands that are actually carrying the torch. So I don't know. It's cool to see.
It's cool. Like I don't really listen to those bands, but I have listened to those bands. I'm very familiar with them, and the thing I respect about both of them a lot, which I care about this more than if I like have them on like my gym playlist or something, is that they do their own thing unapologetically. Like Bring Me the Horizon takes lots of risks. They will do stuff that could possibly alienate their entire audience, and they've always done that. And then Sleep Token is just its own thing.
Yeah, nothing sounds like it will yet. You know, we'll get all the copycats soon enough.
I'm probably gonna mispronounce it again, but like Bad Omens are also. I'm French. I can't pronounce anything, but. You know, I see a lot of, and I do understand that for fans of extreme music, it's not considered extreme or whatever. But what people need to understand is that for their own bands to thrive, they need gateway bands like this. They need those big bands, because if you remove them, like I don't think extreme music would be such, you know, so much popular right now without them. I really don't think so. I think it would be still niche, or maybe like just you know, within the heavy metal scene. But now we see bands like Lorna Shore touring like crazy everywhere.
Amazing,
doing
right?
big things. And never in my life I would have thought that such an heavy band would be doing those things. And I think part of the reason is because people are starting with Bring Me the Horizon, starting with Slipknot and stuff like that, and then they want heavier and heavier, and they come across things like Lorna. So you need to. Almost no one starts with the heaviest thing. Like it just doesn't work like that. You need to be introduced first. So as much as people sometimes, you know, don't respect these bands or whatever, they're essential. That's just how it is.
It's kind of like, I don't know if you had this experience as a kid, but did you ever try like liquor as a little kid?
Yeah. Yep.
Like just get handed it by the adults and be like, like, what
beer
the
for the first time, you know?
Yes. Yeah, like what is this poison?
Wine
I think
for the first time.
Yeah, I think that's what metal, any form of metal, hardcore, whatever. I think that's what this kind of music sounds like to people who don't listen to it. And the reason I think that is because remember once in like 8th grade or something, there was this thing in one class, the cool teacher would have everybody bring in their music for a day. So it was just kind of on a rotation. And then when it was my turn, I don't remember, I played like Morbid Angel or something like that. And the reaction of the people in my class was nuts. Like they
instant
started,
mosh pit.
Yeah. I mean, they started screaming, but not in the way you want them to. Like, there was screaming, and there was like, it was like this violent reaction to turn it off.
Yeah.
Like they were getting assaulted or something. It was
Probably
this,
only push you to make it go louder, right?
well, I didn't have control. The teacher did. But they were like very affected by it, and it was like a very negative reaction. And I remember hearing Cannibal Corpse for the first time and being like, what is this fucking noise? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think absolutely the gateway bands are a total necessity, unless you just have someone that is just wired crazy and like they hear death metal or something for the first time and are like, yeah, this sounds great.
Probably exists, right? I guess
it has to.
Somewhere some people are like that, and it's fine for them. But even honestly, I wasn't like that. I still remember perfectly the moment that I heard The Devil Wears Prada. I don't know if you're familiar with The Devil Wears Prada. It's like it was a metalcore,
of course.
Small, okay, and they did a song called Texas is South, and it started with this scream. And I remember in my mind thinking, oh, I don't think I'm ever gonna listen to something as heavy as that. And here I am now listening to Waking the Cadaver and all that stuff. So it's it's an acquired taste for so many people. I would even say for the majority of people. So we need those bands, and personally, I'm just always happy to see bands like that thriving. It's awesome. It's great. Like, don't listen to it if you don't like it. It's fine. Nobody's forcing you, but it's still helping the scene nonetheless. It's still important. That's the mentality, I feel like.
Deathcore wouldn't be where it is right now if it weren't for Lorna Shore blowing up.
I don't think.
Like, say what you want about the band. Like, they're carrying the scene right now, like
completely.
1,000%. Like,
absolutely.
Slaughter to Prevail,
with Slaughter,
yeah.
Man, Lorna Shore. So we had them on Nail the Mix, and so had
with
that
Josh,
was a really with Josh. It was
cool.
Josh Schroeder, for anyone who doesn't know what Josh we're talking about. That was an opportunity to really like get inside of their riffs, and I mean their riffs are.
It's crazy shit.
Some straight up black metal riffs in there, like legit. You could be listening to an Emperor record if you just solo the guitars. Like, they have the style. When they go to black metal, it's pretty authentic. You don't always notice it on the records because they'll layer so many different guitars. It's just this wall of just evil brutality. But when I was kind of just going through the tracks and checking them out, I was like, I cannot believe that this is as big as it is. Mm-hmm. I would have never imagined growing up that something that was this evil would be this huge. Awesome. Yeah, so happy about it.
We went through, loving deathcore, and then deathcore died.
Yep.
It was on the deathbed, and at that point, 2013, 14, 15, whatever, you would have asked me if we'd be talking about a band like Lorna Shore in the way that we are in 2024. I would have laughed my ass off. Like, there's no shot, right? So let alone it being such an extreme band. Like, it's for metal as a whole, as well as just the entire genre. It's just, it's changed everything. And I think to kind of tie it back, like, I think Lorna for sure is going to be one of those bands that's going to be doing the festival things and doing the top things in metal for sure with bands like Slaughter to Prevail as well.
Yeah, I think they're starting. I could be wrong, but it feels like you were talking earlier, like what's going to happen when Slipknot is gone and stuff like that. And it's in my mind since forever, honestly. I'm always thinking, like,
I'm amazed those bands are still around, to be honest.
What's going to happen? And I
Cannibal
feel like
Corpse still playing, like, what's...
Yeah,
and
they're still killing it. That's the wild
better than
part.
ever. Yeah.
Like, you hear, like, they didn't skip a beat. Like, it's still the same. It's mind blowing. But so when those bands aren't going to be around, like, it would be possible that bands like Lorna or Slaughter is going to, even if they're super extreme, there's a possibility that they keep going and they're carrying the torch. And it's like, I feel like Lorna they have so many death metal elements that they contribute to the death metal scene respecting deathcore more. Like, I could be wrong, but
Yes.
I feel like they create this bridge now because a lot of death metal people are opening their mind, being like, oh, okay, it's not so. It's pretty good and technical now. No one can say that Lorna are not skilled. Like,
but it's this buffer period, and I first started to notice this buffer period with Black Dahlia Murder, where it takes like 5 albums or something before the metal community will accept a band. And so, like, if you think back to Black Dahlia Murder in like 2007. Yeah. Like the metal community were they hated them. They thought that there were these
I never understood that though.
I never understood it either.
At the gates type thing, which was huge, you know. Like
they were like the modern version of Carcass meets At the Gates, but they were considered this like lame metalcore band and they got so much hate. But now. Fast forward, they've been completely embraced. And I think you see the same thing with Suicide Silence, where they've been embraced by the metal community for the most part. And I think it's really just, it's a longevity thing, because I think there's this thing that happens where the haters, they like grow up and either they stop caring or like they get over it. They've seen this name so many times. Yeah. And the band has put out so many records that they like okay.
Doing these huge shows and headlining all these things. It's like, it gets to a point where it's undeniable, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. But it's funny because a band like Suicide Silence was as huge as it was back then, but yet was still not accepted, you know? It's like, I don't know.
They were massive and crazy how massive they were before even getting signed. So I think that like the true roots of deathcore, deathcore, I think in lots of ways, I don't want to say it carries extreme music, but I remember underground death metal in the 90s, and I remember what those shows were like. I was a kid, but they were intense, and there was no real mainstream element to it. Maybe for like a very brief period of time in like 1993 or 4, there was like 1 year where
Song came out in a movie type thing.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. Cannibal Corpse was in Ace Ventura, and then like Beavis and Butthead had them on, and Morbid Angel on, and then so major labels got into it, but it was a very brief time period. But in those days, there was just this buzz among people who were into it. And so you would have these shows that would pack out like 1,000 people or 800 people, and you wouldn't know where everyone came from or how they were hearing about it. So you fast forward to like the early MySpace days. And you know how they heard about it, but it was a very similar thing where bands like Suicide Silence or Job for a Cowboy or whatever, or Whitechapel, they kind of just took on this momentum that was completely outside of the record industry and its own thing. And that was the only thing that I can think of until nowadays that had that same kind of momentum that the death metal had. So like, I think that deathcore has definitely done wonders for extreme metal as a whole, because that is where kids were getting into it from, or are now.
Would it be fair maybe to like, because you just made me realize like a big part of the reason why death metal was rejecting deathcore so much is they wanted it to be this underground cool thing, and now the deathcore kids, you know, they made it kind of more accessible and open, and it like, you know, like back in 2000, I would say 7, 8, 9, it was so huge and everybody was listening to it, so they probably felt like their cool scene that they had was changing and, you know, just becoming mainstream, and it would probably be a big part of the reason why they were like, what are you doing with our music, kind of.
I think that's part of it, but I also think that the genre title had more to do with it, just that it had core in the name. Because if those bands had just been called death metal, I don't think anyone would have been able to tell the difference, because
we always have this conversation
like
about
the same kind of
Suicide
music.
Silence. It's like super brutal death metal influence, like the early stuff. It's like, who's to say they're not a death metal band?
Dude,
You know, like, come on.
Cowboy, it's straight up death metal for the most part.
It's only because core was at the end of right after death instead of metal, it said core. And then also because I think that the crowd that was coming into the scene were a bunch of kids who, it was a bunch of kids.
The purple skinny jeans and the V-neck.
They dressed
guilty.
They dressed differently. So I think that's basically it. It was so weird to me though, because if you just closed your eyes and listened, they sounded almost exactly the same.
Yep.
Yeah. And like, there's different kinds of heavy, but I'd argue some of that shit was heavier than most death metal that was coming out too. You know, so it's like kind of ironic on that front too.
Well, yeah, I think that there's genres kind of have their peak, and then you need new blood to come in, and so I think also that had something to do with it, because you still hear this with like some of the old timers, like they reject lower tunings. They have, even though Morbid Angel in the 90s already was coming out with 7 strings, and bands back then were starting to get into like amp modelers, like the early versions, and metal bands have always been pushing the technology. Like they got into drum triggers before there was like the kind of replacement we have now. They were pushing those technological boundaries. I think that the
backing tracks and all that stuff, like doing it super ghetto on an iPod, but still it was like a thing that like you kind of only had in that kind of space.
Yeah, but I think that once people got comfortable with that, then that next level of technological evolution they were not into anymore, which is weird. They forgot what they were like when they were a little bit younger.
Right. There's like a limit to how much they wanted to advance.
Yeah, it's and I'm saying this knowing a lot of those people now, like who have kind of were in those bands or are still in those bands in the 90s, and then like lived through all those eras. You have some people who are very like into adapting and have always been like open to kids coming into the scene and like evolution of different styles of metal. But then you have those types who like they're just jaded old fucks. And I think that's part of it too, is like it's just human nature. You just get jaded old fucks that don't like new stuff.
That's well said, honestly. Basically. That's well said. There's people that they don't want things to change. They want it to be exactly the same. They want the same sound, the same thing. They're just upset to see different things. And my favorite thing is that over time, a lot of them finally be like, yeah, okay, that's
come around to it. Yeah.
So, you know.
Yep. They come around to it. Like, so I remember when the Kemper profiling app came out in like 2013. We got a prototype model at the studio I was working at, and immediately it was Andy Sneap recommended it to my studio partner, Jason Sukoff, actually, because he's in a wheelchair. So he was like,
I just tried this around amps and shit.
Yeah. He was like, hey, I just tried this new thing that's in prototype stage, but it could like make your life a lot easier, and it's awesome. Like, you should check it out.
Was AxeFX not out at that point? I thought AxeFX came first.
But it wasn't like profiling amps.
Oh, amps that you already had. Sure. Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't profiling them. So, because like Line 6 pods and stuff already existed for a long time.
I'm remembering now. That was the big thing with the Kemper, was being able to kind of rip the sound that you had going on and kind of create a profile for it.
Exactly. So when that came out and we started using it in the studio, you'd have bands, and all the way from local to like the biggest bands in metal coming in and being kind of anti-using it. So we would do these blind tests where it's like, we just model the amp. You tell me which one's which. If you can, like, here's 2 sounds, I'm not going to tell you which is which. If you legitimately like the real amp better, we'll use that. But just which one's which. And they always got it wrong. Yeah. Always got it wrong. They could not tell a fucking difference.
And based on that, they wanted the dude to get out of his wheelchair to go model the amps. It's kind of like, come on, dude.
Well, I mean, that's what we did. We modeled every single amp in the studio in like right when we got it. And so then we would play the profiles for people, or we would get a tone with them right then and there, and then profile it and then play it back against the real thing. And interestingly enough, they almost always thought that the Kemper tone was the real thing. And so by like, usually because we were able to make it sound better. So I've noticed that those old timers, sometimes you just gotta like hold their hand into it.
Yeah. You gotta really show them type thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, it's better. It's better. Yeah.
Let's shift gears a little bit to the new record, because I'd love to talk about the new stuff and
cool
new stuff, but also your comeback into music, because that was a whole journey that I'd love to kind of touch on. I know you've talked about some of this stuff previously, but I think maybe for context for people listening, it's
happy to talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, so Daath was a band that, was around for 11-ish years initially, pretty early on. You guys, I was looking back through things, and maybe fact check some stuff for me. You guys started in '99, but the first album was 5 years later. Was there anything in between, demos or anything like that?
Yeah. So it started in '99 when I was going to Berkeley. I hated it, and I came back. I went home to Atlanta for winter break and just hit up an old friend and was like, let's start a weird death metal band, electronic / death metal. And then we made a song, and it was better than anything I was doing with anybody at Berkeley. So I just dropped out and moved back home, and in order to start the band and to start a studio. And it was just me and this dude for a while, and we made a full-length demo. But it was pretty experimental. It was all over the place. We were just trying to
people finding their sound.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so we put out this self-produced record called Futility, in 2003, where it was still kind of really all over the place. So it was 3-4 years, but we were, during that time, it went from just the two of us. Then we'd start trying out musicians, and it was this process.
They add their own touch, and inherently changes the band every time. Oh, okay,
We'd get musicians, they'd add their own touch, we'd kick them out, get other musicians. Because it was weird music. It was really weird music. It was hard to find anyone to play with, and so it took a while. We didn't get the first lineup really solidified until we got a record deal. It was just tough to get people behind it, because it was so weird that it's just hard to get people to come. In those days, weird music was not as accepted as it is now. So it was hard, and there weren't as many good musicians as there are now, and they weren't as easy to find. So
that's the main thing, right? Internet, is a different reality than it is now. Finding members online versus, I think your band is a demonstration of that. I think there's a stark contrast between finding members now versus back then, right?
different world. So that's kind of why it took a while back then, was because our standards were still high back then, but it was ridiculous trying to find people. Nowadays, just with drummers, for instance, nowadays drummers, it's an oddball drummer who can't play to a click. Back then, it was an oddball drummer who could play to a click. Just for instance, people are just better at music now. So so we, during those years, and then we'd also tour around the region, and we were doing all the things that I read you kind of had to do in order to get signed to a big label, because that was That was my goal. Like, I wanted to get signed to Roadrunner actually from the beginning. I didn't want to start on a small label. I wanted to start on Roadrunner. So I like learned about what they were looking for, like, and what major labels were looking for, and just kind of like set my mind to it. And so it took a while. It just took a while back then.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's funny you say that, because in later stuff, like writing for Metal Sucks and stuff, I see a lot of the stuff that I saw you write was kind of against that theory, right? Like against the chasing the dream of a label and doing the things that are expected out of a band to quote unquote make it, right?
Well, yeah, that depends on if you're like changing what you do artistically to try to please somebody, or like if you're doing inauthentic things. I think that's the big problem. And then I also think that if people have unrealistic expectations about what a label does or would do, that was the problem. But like, I didn't have unrealistic expectations. Like, I knew the whole plan was like, we're going to get on Roadrunner and then they're going to drop us because there's no way that we're going to get big enough for them to keep us. But the boost, it's exactly what happened. But like, I figured the boost that we'll get from being with them, even for an album, will basically leapfrog us beyond what we could do in like 3 albums on an independent label, being as weird as we are. So like, I went in with eyes open, and I guess the Metal Sucks column was really aimed at getting people to go in with eyes open. Like, it wasn't like against labels or against going after things like that. It was against going after those things stupidly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So then you guys did the thing up until 2011-ish, and eventually hung it up. And I know you basically stopped playing guitar kind of at the same time, right?
Pretty much, maybe within like 2 years after that.
Yeah. I'd love to kind of dig into that. Cause I think it's kind of rare for, a musician to kind of full stop doing the thing that they've been doing for so long, especially when it comes to music. Maybe I know obviously you change priorities into other things, but I think most people, unless there's like an injury involved, will still kind of noodle around or still kind of keep at it. And I guess there's like, that goes in tandem maybe with like, at what point was the quote unquote musician dream not a thing anymore, right? Like maybe take us through like not playing guitar anymore and stopping the band thing. I'd love to kind of dig into that.
So in those days, the band did not connect with the audience. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I think Daath fans, when they get into our music, they're kind of fans for life, which is why we came back. Was the fan base, like, they still hung on to it, and then it grew. And then once people get into it, it seems like they don't get out of it, but it was not getting, it was not catching on. And we were working really, really hard.
It wasn't sustainable.
It was unsustainable. And, it was messing up relations within the band. Like it was just a really, really negative place. But we were working our asses off, and we thought we were. I don't think we were delusional. We thought we were awesome, but like, it was like, why the fuck does nobody care? Like, this is like, we know bands where nobody cares, and we're better than them. Why is it going so like shitty? And like, I think it was also a matter of. We're also kind of monsters back then. Like, I've learned how to work with people better. Yeah. But like, we felt like we were basically beating our heads into a brick wall. Like, we've worked so hard to get good at music, and like, so like, it was never casual for us. It was never like
12 years is a long time too, right? For context, like, it wasn't like we tried this for 3 years and we're not getting results. Like, it's a 12-year stint,
Yeah. And also all the years before that of like, of
Learning.
like really being serious about music, like as the only thing. And it just it didn't go that well, and by the time it was done, like I kind of just wanted nothing more to do with it. Like
Yeah.
I kind of had
became bitter
PTSD from the
towards it,
experience.
yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of really negative shit happened, and like lots of like really shady people that we got into business with, and like we definitely saw the dark side of things, like lots of near death experiences, like lots of violent encounters, like encounters with like criminals. Like it was just like a lot of negative stuff to where by the end it was like, I've had enough. Am I stupid for like still going?
Get me the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Like, is there something else I can do with my expertise? Like I'm like too smart and too good at this to like, let this be my fate. And so I just decided, I'm out. Like, this has brought me nothing but pain. So I'm out. However, it's not like I'm going to go back to school and like learn a new profession. Mm-hmm. Like I have expertise, so I'm going to use it, which is where the other stuff I did came from. But the idea of like being in a band or playing guitar or anything gave me nothing but like anxiety, like bad anxiety, to where it was I just didn't want anything to do with it. And I also didn't want to be one of those people that like didn't like just did it for fun. Like I don't do shit for fun.
Right.
So
after having done it for so seriously for so long, you're kind of like, it's all or nothing.
Yep. I'm an extremist. It's all or nothing. Like there's no casual for me. So, if I wasn't doing it, I wasn't going to do it at all is basically it.
Yeah. And then, so you were producing already at that point. You were producing Daath records. Were you doing producing outside of your own music as well already? Like, were you doing studio work?
Yeah, like the first like signed band I did was in 2004. It was like Misery Index.
Yeah.
I did the Descent EP and like did some Arsis records. And
how'd you get in touch with those bands? Like, were they just local to you? Like, what was?
No,
because those are some now big bands. I don't know 2004 what it looked like, but those guys were up and up.
Kevin Talley, our old drummer.
Okay.
I found him through a classified ad where the classified ad was like, drum lessons, we'll teach you blast beats and double bass, was in dying fetus. So I hit him up and asked him if he would play on my band's record, and that's kind of how I met Kevin Talley. And he was in Misery Index at the time. So through like having Kevin play on a Daath record and it failing miserably, he played on the first record and we had to erase all his tracks.
No.
Yeah, it was an interesting story with him, but like, yeah, he came in to do the session for Futility and like just botched the shit out of it. And I still paid him. So he kind of like owed me one. So when he was on the road with Misery Index, he talked them into coming to my place to do the Descent EP. So
he wasn't scared you were going to delete his drums a second time.
I mean, it was partially my fault too, because I wrote drum parts that were impossible. Yeah. So that's how I learned how to program drums after that, after having the experience of Kevin coming into the studio and making fun of me and not being able to play the shit I wrote. That's when I decided, all right, I need to actually learn how to program drums so that this never happens again. But like, so through Kevin, and I don't remember how I met Arsis. Oh yeah, I know how I met Arsis. Their drummer, I was in a band with their drummer back at Berkeley.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Small detail. So yeah, we were all part of like a similar scene back then. And I saw the studio as a way to get my band opportunities, and I saw my band as way to get the studio opportunities.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was never that into production, but I felt like it was better than going to local studios that sucked at producing metal. So
Yeah, yeah, sure. Like for your own records, you just rather do it yourself and
back
have
then,
it at least sound the way you want it to sound.
yeah, back then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was already producing records.
Yeah, and then how long into that quote unquote break did you end up at Audio Hammer? Was that
Immediately.
immediately? Okay.
Yeah, it was. I kind of. So there were bigger bands that were constantly trying to poach band members from Daath, because we had like the best players in the scene pretty much outside of like Dream Theater or like Jeff Loomis and stuff. Like all the other bands kind of knew that, and so they were. Chimera ended up being the one who poached everybody, but there were others. There were others who were like continually trying to poach band members, and there was this one time that I thought for sure, like that we were going to lose a key member, like right before we were making the final album, and so the day he told me that he was going to go join that band, which didn't end up happening. I called Sukov up and I was like, "Hey, this is happening. What do I do?" And he just said, "Move down to Florida. Move down to Florida and work for me."
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You had been friends with him and Mark Lewis for previously.
Yeah, for a while. So literally I knew the band was going to fall apart. So I just made a call, and luckily he offered me that spot. Like,
yeah.
Right then and there.
Was there any inkling of like, because I mean, it's on a whole other level, but for me personally, when I stopped doing the band thing, it was like the biggest hurdle for me was not knowing what was next, right? Like, was that something that was playing in your mind, and that's kind of how you made the call? Like, hey, I can't have nothing all of a sudden. Like, I gotta jump into something else.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, well, but it was also like, where is this going? Like, even if this band doesn't like fall apart, where is this going? Like, where should I be banking my future on this? Mm-hmm. And the answer was definitely no.
Yeah,
absolutely not. Like, I need to figure something else out. And so that's what I figured out. It was, when I would think to the future, it was terrifying.
Sure.
It was absolutely terrifying, with or without the band.
Another 12 years out, and you're like, oh shit. You know?
Yeah, like, what's the best case with the way things were going? What's the best case scenario if we stay together?
Yeah,
not very good. So I need something else, or it's going to be really dark in a few years.
As you got more experience, I would be curious to know, like, did you have these thoughts of like, oh, we should have done, you know what I mean? Because sometimes after a while, with some more perspective, you're like, oh my God, if we would have done this and this instead, it probably would have worked. Like, did you have these kinds of thoughts after, a few years after, or a few months even,
Yeah, but the thing with those thoughts is you don't actually know that.
Yeah, there's no way of knowing.
You don't really know what would have happened. True. Like, we could have done this decision and then died in a van wreck.
True.
Like, you just have no way of knowing. And things have turned out really well. So everything led to the present day.
True.
So yes, if I think back to certain situations, it's like, damn, we like fired the wrong person and hired, like, in our business team, like, we got swindled by somebody. And yeah, maybe we shouldn't have fired that one person who was doing good for us and then hired this criminal, or like, maybe we should have gotten rid of this band member when I wanted to, or like, maybe I shouldn't have taken this idea from this. Yeah, definitely. But like, at the same time, how do we actually know what would have happened? Right?
You never know. Yeah.
No. So you can sit there. It's kind of like it'll make you crazy if you think about that stuff, because
the possibilities are endless.
Yeah. You're just inventing. You're just inventing scenarios because you actually don't know what would have happened.
It'd be another thing if we could test those scenarios out, but that's not the case. So it's like,
No.
what's the point? You know, it's you can't help
well,
yourself, but you gotta kind of, you know, step back and look at it for what it is ultimately.
It's still good to like review mistakes, right? Like I'm not saying don't look at what you did wrong. So it's like, yes, there's definitely mistakes, and there's definitely things I think should have been done differently, but like it's pointless to torture myself over it because you actually don't really know what would have happened.
Yeah, and also I think there's a lot of value in no matter the journey, what it is. Like it's not like people tend to focus on the result. Sure, like I get it, but at the same time, there's a lot of different experiences that are amazing and that helps you in whatever career you have. That, you know, even if it wasn't the ultimate result you wanted, it still it led you where you are, and you're in position now to even maybe help some people with that perspective. And I'm sure it happened that you probably gave some advice and tried to you know, according to what you went through, you were in a position where you're like, hey, I don't want to tell you what to do, but you could maybe, you know, do that instead. So I think there's a lot of value, no matter the outcome, no matter the journey in my
Totally. Absolutely. I think the value is in how you interpret it and what you do with it.
Yeah.
If you decide that it means something terrible and that it's the end or whatever, like if you let it become that, you know, that's on you. But if you look at anyone who's had a life that they feel has worked out, and you look at their history almost always has like ups and downs and terrible moments and great moments and things that worked, things that didn't work, and the things that didn't work sucked while they weren't working, and then that time passed and something else they did worked. So, you know, if we look at people's results and we ignore everything that kind of led up to that result, you can paint a picture. You can get creative about some myth that their life was perfect, or that they didn't make any mistakes, or that you understand exactly how they got to where they got, which you actually don't know. So, like, yeah, it's good to have the lessons, but it's also good to try to paint a narrative that is productive for you, instead of painting one that is not negative or that will lead you down like a miserable path.
Yeah, because instead of helping your present, it ruins it. You know, like if you're just like, oh my God, I should have done or this or this, or like you're just basically out of nothing. You're making a situation negative right now for no reason, instead of being like, how can I use that? Like, how can I, like, what did I learn? Like, what can I do with it? And I understand that it's not everybody. You don't always need to do that, but it's something personally that helped me a lot, instead of seeing it as a waste of time or losing this or this, like, oh my God, it was like a failure. I see it more as like, okay, what can I do with those experiences? And it's as you said, it's much more productive and it's helpful, instead of, you know, being emotional or complain about what you did before. So I get it.
It takes effort sometimes.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's not always easy. You know, it's just you know, yeah.
Nope.
But you kind of so you kind of alluded to it a bit earlier. You know, the fans kind of being a part of the reason why you came back to Daath and picked the guitar back up and stuff. Can you kind of walk us through, like, how long did it take to materialize? From like, you know, when did that inkling come in of like, maybe I could consider this? Or because there's so much involved in that, right? Like, you had to find members, you had to, you know, there's what's the music even going to sound like? Yeah, I got to brush up on guitar, like all these things. Like, I'd love for you to kind of take us through that, if you don't mind.
So from the day that I decided to pick up a guitar until I decided to bring the band back was like 6 weeks.
Okay.
Because like at first it was really horrific trying to play guitar. It was really bad, and I think it took a while to get my skills back, and that was a really weird. That was a really weird time period to like be writing stuff and it like all sucks, and then hearing myself,
it's all sloppy, and it's like, it's kind of discouraging.
It was. People were like, you should post videos. It's like,
No, I don't.
It's like, fuck no, I'm not gonna do that. No one's gonna hear me sound like this. So it took. The thing is that like I basically took my own advice with guitar. The stuff that we told people to do on riffhard, I did that. Like I did exactly what
you were actually using the courses, right?
Yeah. Like religiously, like militaristically, actually. And I just figured I created a resource that helps metal guitar players get sick at metal. I made it. I should use it. So that's what I did for the first, like the first year. I was very all about it. And then I just took lots of lessons with people. I would take a lesson with like Wes or something, and then just work with that for like a few weeks, and then like Brandon Ellis, and then work with that for a few weeks. But I sucked. It was one of those things where I just had to like trust that it was gonna come back better. And then, so
you got to post a glow up, first day picking up the guitar.
I didn't film that. I was way too embarrassed. I probably should have, but I do have a few recordings from back then.
For your own thing, day one of using riffhard, and then day 365 of using riffhard.
I do have demos I did back then, and they are rough stuff. So I might post those, but yeah. So once I decided to like get the band back together, that was also kind of weird because my writing wasn't all back yet either. Like a lot of the sophistication and like the stuff that like used to come easily was not there.
The routine, right? Of the routine nature of songwriting is like something you have to really get back into.
Yeah. Like, and the techniques and like the, how to like just go down the rabbit hole and just do good stuff. It wasn't there. So, so how was I going to convince people?
Sure.
That was really challenging at first. And I think that it might be why it didn't work out with the old lineup. Like maybe they heard the original demos and were like, this is going to be fucking terrible. We're not in or something.
Because you reached out to everyone initially. Right?
Yeah. We tried to make it work with the old lineup. It didn't work. But, like it's not beyond me to think that it could be that the reason it didn't work was they heard the demos, talked amongst themselves, and were like, and just didn't, except for Sean, the vocalist, he had faith that it was going to be sick, but maybe they just didn't, maybe they heard the demos. Cause I made the first demos like within 2 months of picking the guitar back up after 8 years. So, maybe they didn't believe it was going to get better or something. So, it was, but I knew it was going to. So when I started talking to Krim, I sent him some sloppy demos too, and just told him, look, this is the situation. You got to trust me.
I mean,
it's going to get better.
That's the thing that every single musician is going to tell you before sending you a demo, regardless, right? This is just a demo, dude. Don't take it face value. This is just an idea. Like you got to, every musician will warn you,
Yeah, except like in my case, like it really was sloppy as shit. Yeah. Like I'll get those warnings from people who are awesome. And then it's like,
but that's kind of my point, right? Is that like everyone gives that warning regardless, right?
Yeah. And since we hadn't worked together before, he probably didn't
Right.
think anything of it. And who knows what he's dealt with as far as getting tracks from people. So maybe it wasn't that sloppy compared to what he's heard. But anyways, he was totally cool about it. And between that time and then getting a totally solid lineup, we didn't finish the lineup until we were just about ready to go into the studio to like complete the record.
Yeah.
So
after the singles, right? Because you've had them
after the singles,
exactly. Yeah,
we didn't have a complete lineup when we did those first batch of singles, which is why we have so many guests on the record.
I was going to ask about that. Okay, that's cool. That's kind of like the reasoning behind it.
Yeah,
because it is an interesting thing about the record. It takes you in different places because of the different guests that you have on.
Kind of. So there's two things. First of all, collabs are a really great thing to do in the current age. That's like the cheat code for streams.
Yeah.
So like people should be doing collabs, but also we didn't have a finished lineup, and I was dedicated to doing this no matter what. So there's no more waiting. There's no more waiting. This is going to happen regardless of who's in it. It's happening. And so had to get some friends to help out. But the thing is, with all the guest solos, we worked really closely with them. It's not like we just gave them something like anything and we're just throw a solo. We worked closely to give them parts that would really work with their style, but that would really work with our style too. So it was definitely like an actual collaboration, as if they were in the band, as opposed to lots of guest solos.
99% of collabs,
yeah. So I think that's why they sound like they fit in the song. It's because they actually do fit in the song on purpose. But yeah, that happened mostly.
But they add something. Like, sorry to cut you off. Like, I think that is a thing that happens a lot with features. We talk about this a lot, specifically in deathcore, if we're being honest. Like, guests that are added on as maybe just that promo thing, right? Like the act of collaborating, but it doesn't actually add something to the song.
Yep.
Like
sometimes you don't even know where it is.
Yeah, I don't even know when the part comes in. It's a guest vocalist that does the same style of vocals as. And I'm like, cool, but really, whereas I don't feel it like that I think the different guests on your album really take the songs into places that they probably wouldn't have otherwise, right? Like, to your point, because of the collaboration also and making it seamless, but still, it's not a solo you would have written, right?
No, definitely. But we chose to ask certain people for
absolutely,
a reason. Yeah. Like there's a lot of shredders out there, but we asked very specific dudes who like we knew it would be like a good thing to work together. So yeah, it definitely, you should be able to tell that it's them.
Yeah.
100%. But the thing is, like I asked every one of them, like, what are your 3 favorite, proudest moments, I guess, out of any solos you've ever done, and what would be a dream scenario? Like if you could have like the dream scenario to solo over, what would that be? And between analyzing what their proudest moments were and what they would tell me about their dream scenario, and then what we already had material wise that kind of gave like a direction to go in to where we could do something that was like really organic, which is the same thing I would do for someone in the band, right?
Yeah.
If with your own lead guitar player, if you're writing a part for them to solo over, those are the kinds of things you want to think about, or like, what are their strengths? Like what do they do best over? Like what is going to get them excited to take it to that next level? So
that's not necessarily the most common thing, I feel, though, in especially in the case where someone is a main songwriter in a band type thing. I think there is, unfortunately, a lot of ego involved that kind of, here's the part, play over it. I think that happens a lot.
Yeah, I think that's misplaced ego.
Absolutely.
Your ego
100%.
and pride should be in the end result, not in like the little it's just like we all have egos and we all have pride in this stuff, and we all take this personally, and being an artist requires you to be a little bit of a narcissist. So, but it's more like where you point that weapon, right? It's if it's a weapon and you're pointing it at like individual parts, like this is the part I wrote for the solo, so you have to solo over this part because it's my part that I want you to solo. That's a bad way to use your pride or your ego. If like your ego is going to be fulfilled by the song coming out sick, I think that's a much better place to point that weapon.
No, for
basically.
sure. And then how was it for you then actually releasing music? And you know, I'm sure there was some semblance of maybe some expectations, and how did it go out? To talk a bit about, you know, the record itself, you know, charted on Billboard, you know, which is super fucking cool.
It's crazy.
Like how is all of that for you, considering you guys hung it up because it wasn't resonating with fans, right? Like there's quite a gap, you know, in between those two kind of feelings, I assume.
Yeah. So the whole time that we were doing this, I was asking myself if I'm being one of those delusional people by bringing this back. Like, should I have left this in the past?
Yeah. So we've all seen the examples, right?
Yeah, exactly. Is this going to sound old and tired? I don't want it to sound old and tired, but is it going to? Am I crazy? Should I just be normal, like a normal person, and let it go? You know, all that stuff. Like, we're wasting our time. All those questions. Like,
or it could have been another band completely, as opposed to
exactly.
redoing Daath. You know, yeah,
exactly. Or are we going to be able to like deliver anything of value with how like insane metal has gotten?
Right, the scene is different. Sure.
Yeah, all those questions. So having it come out and chart, and you know, basically it seems like our entire old fan base loves it, and we've got new fans. So to me,
right here with you.
Thanks. I feel vindicated. Like I feel, and also, you know, keeping it in my mind through those dormant years, like I was always pissed off about it. Even though I was out, I always had a chip on my shoulder about it ending. And I just couldn't let it go. I thought about it every single day, and it just like took me to really dark places. Like I just go down these rabbit holes of just being pissed off about how it turned out, and then getting mad at myself for being pissed off about it because I should just let it go. So bringing it back and it charting and going over well makes me feel like I wasn't crazy during, like maybe it was a good thing to not let it go. So it's good. It's very good.
Just wanted to take a second of your time to talk to you guys about the Thrill of the Hunt Tour 2024 presented by Brutality Podcast, that's us, and Imperial Booking. The tour features MySpace deathcore revival bands Peacemaker, Victim Blamed, and Reverent. The tour runs from July 12th to the 27th and is going to be hitting the states of Texas, Louisiana, Florida, and Tennessee, with more dates to be added. I'll leave a link in the description for all the dates and ticketing info. Go check it out. And now back to the podcast. That's cool, man. I'm really excited about the album. I think it's I don't know, like listening to the older stuff, I feel like the music was already kind of timeless in a way. And I don't throw that word around loosely. Like, I feel like you listen to old Daath material and it still holds up today, as much in the production as the style of music that's being played. I feel like a obviously you were talking about
thank you.
a 2003 album earlier that was all over the place. But I think from the first quote unquote real one up until the initial end of the band, I think the style had largely kind of stayed in a similar vein, although had improved upon itself every single time. And for a band to come back after so long and to be able to still take that sound and yet make it feel modern. I don't know if it's sounding more modern or if it's just that the old stuff still sounds kind of modern. I don't know which one of the two it is. But I definitely feel like there's a very current sound. I don't know if it's the technical aspect of it, the production. There's something about the new album that I feel it doesn't feel like a dated band bringing back, playing the same old riffs that they used to. For what it's worth, I don't know. That's kind of the way I've seen it.
I appreciate that. I think we've never really trend hopped. So that was part of why we didn't catch on back then was like, we're like not extreme enough for like the extreme people, too extreme for the mainstream crowd, like too much of this for another crowd, like not enough breakdowns for like the breakdown crowd. Like it was you
had the same problems as deathcore had, like sitting on a fence because you were between genres, right? I was looking at the tours you guys were doing, and you would do a deathcore tour one month, and then the next month would be doing a more metalcore thing, but then you could do a black metal thing the next. It was kind of, in a sense, you could kind of fit everywhere, but I'm assuming that came with its equal share of not fitting in anywhere.
Fit in everywhere and nowhere, basically.
Yeah.
So I think it was that thing that made it not catch on is the same thing that makes it not sound dated.
Yeah.
Because you can't place it in any time period because it wasn't trend hopping. It was its own thing then. And it's its own thing now. Like we're not trying to do anything that anyone else is doing. We're just trying to do our thing. But I think that, it's not lost on me that I've been doing URM and riffhard this whole time and have been like talking to all like the best producers and guitar players. And like, I never left metal. So, and then the dudes in the band are also very current dudes. So it's not like one of those situations where a band goes on hiatus and everyone goes and leaves music and then they have a midlife crisis.
They open up the old riff folder from 2004.
Yeah. It's definitely not that at all. None of the music on the new record is old music. It's all brand new. Yeah. And like everybody is very much in the scene, has been in the scene, and is very passionate about it. So I think that's it. I think I actually think if the old lineup had gotten together, that might have ended up not so good.
Sure. Do you think there's something though to be said about the current state of death metal and like technical death metal, progressive death metal altogether? Like we've seen like not necessarily as well. I mean, it's still huge, but for a while everything was prog, like everything was progressive music. Now we've got a lot of tech death that's super popping. You guys have always had, from the early days, the synth and stuff in your music, which is like as big of an instrument as it's ever been in kind of current metal music. Do you think any of that maybe like timing wise maybe plays into some of the success as well?
Yes, for sure. Like I think that the scene wasn't into that kind of stuff. Like back then we would get so much hate for using synth.
Yeah.
So much. Now it's like an accepted part of it. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a better time for metal, in my opinion.
It probably felt
a good time.
Really good reading because I was on the video just reading comments for fun on Ascension, which for the record I think is an awesome song, and
thank you.
People are so happy. Like it's genuinely it's very rare in metal that it's just positive, and And honestly, people were just like so happy to, to see you guys back. And not only back, but what I'm reading is like people are saying that it's even better and then refined and stuff like that. Like how did you, it must have been scary to release some new stuff at first. Like how did it feel to just like realize that actually people are glad we're back? Like this is happening.
It was scary. It was nerve-wracking, but if I'm being honest, I felt pretty confident about it. Like the first song we put out was no rest, no end, and I just kind of like felt
banger track, by the way. I think second favorite on the album. It's that was a great single to lead with. I'll say that much.
I just kind of felt that if people don't like this,
right,
then I'm out. Like then I really don't like this. This is really like one of the best things I could possibly do, and if people hate this, maybe my music is not for people.
To your point, like, maybe I'm delusional.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, because I felt like they had to like it, or at least respect it. Yeah, and if not, then that's my answer. My answer is this shit should remain in the past.
Kind of an initial vibe check right off the bat.
But I felt pretty good about it. And I have felt really good about all of it. So even though it's like nerve-wracking, I think it's nerve-wracking because of all of the like the PTSD that comes with how bad it went before. But this record on its own, this lineup on its own, like I feel nothing but confident about it.
It probably helps that it's two very, very different situations where, with as much as, the lineup change, but also working long distance. And it's also so far removed from like time wise from back then. I'm assuming there's some part of it that must almost kind of feel just like its own thing as opposed to a continuation. Is that fair?
Maybe, because at the end of the day, like it's still me sitting down in front of a DAW and just getting to work and then bringing people in and working with them.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of how I've always done things. So it's kind of the same. It's just different people, but we've had lineup changes always.
Yeah.
So it's not, I don't know, like, yes, those things that you're saying are probably part of it. Like it's removed, it's long distance, all those things. But I think this is just a better time to be doing this kind of music. And also I think that a big part of why it worked and is working is because everybody in the band has something going on outside of the band.
It's not the main thing. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And I think back then everybody having the band as their main thing was a big problem. Right. Because you put all your hopes and dreams and everything into this band, and
validation,
you're more emotional.
Yeah, exactly. Like any of these dudes, like you say they write a part and you're not into it, that's okay. Like they have plenty of other stuff that they're writing for. If like this doesn't go well, they're okay. They
could use that riff in another project if they want.
Yeah, exactly. They have no shortage of outlets. Mm-hmm. So, and also they don't need this. They don't need to like push this to be anything other than what it is. So I think everybody having their own thing has allowed it to remain pure, which I think is another reason that it went well, because then it doesn't have me being a fucking asshole. Because there were times where it would start to get what I felt would be impure in the past, like taking ideas that I didn't think fit because I had to please members. Things that, like, there's certain types of influences that you will hear. You don't hear on the record at all.
Sure.
I'm not going to say what they are, but like there are certain things that are like completely erased from our style and that I wanted to erase from our style back then. Like there's certain musical influence that I fucking hate. Like certain types of guitar that I never wanted to learn, that I left Berkeley because you had to, one of the reasons I left was you had to learn it. And I just like, it makes me cringe to hear. And then I'd hear that stuff on our records. And so like, I think that I'm probably easier to work with because I'm not like hearing things and having to like accept them in order to keep a lineup together.
Right.
So it's a lot more pure.
Sure. I mean, you've also talked, I've heard you talk in the past about just interpersonal relationships and how you've, changed as well as a communicator, I guess, in that sense, when it comes to that sort of stuff, right? Like it's different now. Like you can take a step back and kind of see what went wrong previously and kind of, change for the better for what's coming next, right?
Well, yeah, back then I think I would like hold it in.
Yeah.
Because I would be afraid to say I didn't like something.
It'd come out, just not how you want.
It would come out. Whereas, yeah, now, like, for instance, like I'm just thinking of a part that Raphael wrote that I just didn't like on one of the songs. I asked him if he could rewrite something I wrote and make it sicker, and he gave it back, and it wasn't. And just didn't use it. Yeah. And it never came up again. But there were plenty of parts where I gave him something I wrote and said, "Can see what you can do with it. See if you can make it sicker." And he did. And we kept it. And it was like no drama either which way. It was just
egos aside.
Yeah,
right?
it's just
working
whatever.
towards a common goal. Like everyone wants the same thing, right?
Yeah, where I think I used to be afraid to bring things up and not know how. Like but then if I think back, this is why, back to what we were talking about earlier, when you think back to like the past and should have done this differently or that differently. So I think, maybe I could have communicated better in the past and people would have liked me more, and who knows. But then again, if I think back to those,
maybe they would have said yes this time around.
Yeah, who knows? But if I think back to those days, well, why did I make those decisions? If I put myself back then, well, I made those decisions back then because we were on a major label and we had to keep a lineup together. They would drop us immediately before we could even like.
Hindsight is 2020, right? Always.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there were pressures in those days that led to those decisions. It's not like we were stupid back then or like completely immature. There were unique pressures that led to those decisions, and those decisions probably weren't great, but they
happened for a reason.
They didn't occur in a vacuum. So can't beat myself up over it too much.
No, for sure. We had someone in the chat. I'd be curious to know that as well. Someone was asking like what modern bands you're into, and I would be curious to know that. Maybe newer bands or.
I knew I was going to get asked that.
Okay.
So like, there's a lot. Like in the tech death world, I love Zenith Passage. So I think in tech death, there's a lot of great stuff happening, but and I hate to say,
saturated. You can say it. It's we agree.
It's not. I mean, it's never saturated among great bands. Like
no. But there's just a lot of it. So there's inherently going to be bad, like worse off bands than others. Like it's just.
But there are some amazing bands. So like Arcspire and Zenith Passage are like my two favorites. Like, and then like the other day, like I just checked out a black metal playlist, and I can't even pronounce. There's like the newer black metal bands, I can't pronounce their names, but like there's this band Norjavel, I think that's what they're called. Okay. That are they're just so sick, and
it's beyond like, the unreadable logos. It's the unreadable even in plain text.
But like what I'm hearing, I'm just. Wormed is really, really awesome. Like there's great shit out there. Actually, I like Shadow of Intent a lot. There's like metal, it's in a good place right now. As far as black metal goes, there's this band called Aklys, AKHLYS, I believe, who evil as shit. And then fuck is this band called? That they're damn, why is their name escaping me? I was just thinking about them earlier today. They're on that tour that Zenith is on.
Vitriol.
Vitriol, yes.
Dude, I can't shut the fuck up about them, man.
Dude,
They're so
Vitriol.
fucking good. Their latest record is on an other level, dude. It's another like level of brutality. I've never heard anything like it.
It's just so good. It's like it's so like dark, but
it's primal. There's just something about it. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot. I could go on for a while, but there's a lot of great modern bands. It's important for me to never become one of those people that think that like music was better in the past.
Yeah. Well, I think if you've got any sort of dealings in production specifically, there are just like and even writing music, but there's a certain, I guess, like professions that kind of require you to a certain extent, and it's not that everyone does it, but it kind of requires you to kind of stay up to date and to know what's going on at least a little bit, more than if you're just a regular Joe, that just casually enjoys something.
Yeah, but I think the older you get, the more of an effort you have to put into it, because it's like your natural thing. I think it's just natural for people to find what they like by a certain age. Because the brain stops really developing at like 25, right? And so you notice that, like, I don't know if it's linked. I'm not going to pretend like I know, but it seems to me like some people, like, for the most part, associate all the best stuff with what they got into before the age of 25. And I think that's a very natural thing, probably because your priorities shift to like having a stable life. Your exploratory period is over, and settle in. I think that's kind of the normal path in life. But I just don't want to become one of those people, and I think it takes effort when you get older.
Yeah.
But you just got to look. The thing is, like, it's not that tough. You just got to look.
No, dude,
it's out there.
It's a big part of the reason why Yan and I do the sort of thing that we do, is being aware that a lot of people kind of give up on looking for new bands, or don't know where to look, or don't want to put in the effort. And if there's anything that we can do that kind of makes that easier for people to find sick bands, that's the whole mission statement, right? Like, that's the whole, like, just sharing the love for music. I think
totally
we're in a good place right now where, like, it's fun now. People can have their opinions on reaction videos on YouTube and stuff like that. But I think there's more people spreading the love of music now than ever, and makes it easier and easier for people that aren't searching for music themselves to stumble upon new music. I think it's easier than ever, even with just algorithms from, playlists and what YouTube feeds you and all that sort of stuff. We're in a good place right now for that sort of thing. But definitely, like, yeah, the complacency in trying to find new music is something that's, for us, like musicians and people in music and people who are passionate about this stuff, sometimes it's hard for us to imagine a world where people don't look up new bands every single day, but that's the majority of people, if we're being honest,
That's why, so the hate for Spotify is very, is very misguided, in my opinion. So, yeah, it's true about some of the royalties, but there's a whole other side to what Spotify does that nobody else does. Anyone who actually uploads music and is career conscious has tried to has tried to like upload to like Apple Music or to Tidal or to any of those other ones, and their services fucking suck compared to Spotify. Spotify is the only one that actually gives you tools, like a lot of tools, and like great metrics, and like has like playlists that people listen to, and algorithm, like besides YouTube, but YouTube's a whole different kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not just music.
Yeah, but thanks to Spotify, like, people find new music. It's like the #1 music discovery platform besides YouTube in the world. So despite anything bad you can say about them, the fact that metal is doing well right now is in large part because of those algorithms and because of the tools that are on Spotify. So I know it might be an unpopular opinion, but we are in a good time because of that being available, and it's easier than ever to find great bands. Like you don't have to look very, very hard to find them, because it'll just give them
click
to you.
on radio, and then it pops up a whole list. So based on the things that you already listened to, it's how magical is that? How cool would have that been when we were 15? It
was amazing, and it's good at it too. That's the thing. It's like Pandora Radio or whatever, it really isn't that great.
Yeah.
It comes up with a lot of shitty selections or the same thing over and over and over. Yet the Spotify selections are legitimately really, really well targeted towards what you're into. And especially if you like actually save songs that you like, it'll refine it even more.
Feeds off of that,
yeah, it really isn't difficult to find great new music. It's out there. So it irks me when I hear people saying that musicians were better, or like all the good ideas are taken, or like any of that kind of shitty boomer talk. Like it irks me because it's just not true. It's not true at all. Music's in a great place.
I think people confuse two things, and that's kind of what I was alluding to just before. There's more music now than ever, right? Like it's just that much more accessible. It's just that much easier to get your music out there. And with that comes more great bands than ever, but also more shitty bands than ever. And that's just a part of it. You're never gonna. I think a lot of people stop at just the fact that there's a lot of shitty bands out there, and we'll just kind of use that as a headline. It's like, no, that's just part of the story, and you're never going to erase that. That's always going to be a thing. But if you look at the actual bands that you and I end up listening to, there's more now than ever. And it's more accessible, and it's easier to find, and it's just, I don't know. There's genuinely no reason to complain about any of that.
It's the same principle than anything. It's like saying that in a bigger city there's more bad people. Of course, there's just more people, so there's more bad people. So, and it's like if people were like, "Oh my God, this place, it's full of bad people." No, there's just more people. So it's the same thing in music. Oh my God, back in the days we had less shitty bands. Yeah, you just had less bands. Period.
And less opportunity too.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. The idea in those days, like people talk about those days with rose-colored glasses. It was basically impossible to get a record deal back then. And then most of the time, if you got a record deal, you failed, and you'd get shelved. Like most bands would get shelved, meaning, for people who don't know what getting shelved means, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's worse than not getting dropped.
A deal. Yeah.
It's you get the deal, you make the album, and then they just don't release it, but you're still signed and you can't do anything else. Like you're basically
perma-bands the band.
that happened to so many bands back in the day. So back then, though, the ceiling was much higher, I guess, for how successful a band could get. So if you're really materialistic and you look at bands in the 80s and the 90s and you're like, oh, wow, they're all on private jets, like that's the life I want. Okay, so maybe people who only are in it for that reason might be disappointed. But if you're actually in it to just make music for a living and not have to do other shit and not have to compromise on your art and make extreme music, there's never been a better time period than now. You just have to throw away this idea of riding around in a private jet and like having like 50,000 groupies as notched on your belt. Like if that's why you're doing music, you're in it for the wrong reasons anyways, because it was basically impossible back then too.
And that would have been the case back then too. You still would have been in it for the wrong reasons, even when it was possible,
Yeah. And it was like, it was so rare anyways back then for that to happen to a band. It's just,
especially in metal.
You just heard about it.
So
what's that?
Especially in metal music. I mean, like
you hear about the five.
Yes. You're not exactly at the right place. If you do something like deathcore or whatever, you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna be the the biggest.
Yeah, choosing the wrong profession for that.
Yes, you should try something else. Like you have more chances in pop or country or something like that. Like way more chances, even if it's difficult. But I feel like we're lucky in the metal world because I feel like more than ever, like people making it are doing it for the right reasons. It feels like if you look at the guys in Lorna or big bands like that, they've been doing it forever. They do it because they love it, and they just recently really got the recognition, but they always worked hard. So it tells the world basically they would have done it no matter what. They would still be playing music, I think, right now, even if they wouldn't be as big as they are. So we have that in metal. I think most bands are doing it because they love doing it, and
maybe the expectation, to our point, is kind of like the bar is low, right? The ceiling isn't as high, so you kind of accept it for what it is.
Yes,
less people in it for the wrong reasons for that.
The ceiling isn't as high. However, the ability to make it like a sustainable, respectable living. Like, I don't mean like living like a college student for the rest of your life. I mean like an actual like decent existence.
You can pay your mortgage and not worry about bills.
You can have like a normal adult life playing extreme music now, which with like zero compromises, which is not. It's not a historically. It hasn't always been that way. So it's definitely one of the great things about this current time period. So yeah, when I hear people complaining about this time period, like, look, there's always bad with everything, with every technological advancement. There's a dark side to it, but big picture, when I hear people complaining about the state of music, I think they're full of shit. Basically.
Yeah. I think as you said, I think it's easy, and I'm a super nostalgic kind of person, so I can attest to that. But like most people are gonna look back and feel like it was perfect and all that, and it's simply because they cannot. The nostalgia blinds people a lot, right? Like you feel like everything was perfect. It wasn't. Like even if I miss the early 2000s, I'm kind of happy that I can do a Google research in less than 15 minutes. That's pretty cool. Like it wasn't as amazing, and even musically, it was when I started trying to do music, and I'm sure Dom too, and people, like it wasn't as accessible. Like you had to. You didn't have URM and you didn't have riffhard. That's what happened. Almost no tools. Like you almost had to know people to kind of get in studio and try something. It was also very expensive as opposed to right now. So if you're a musician right now and you want to make it, I think there's no better time. You could start social media. One of your video can take off and you're on. Like everybody knows who you are now. Back in the days, you needed the label to at least have some kind of exposure. You didn't exist without them almost. So I feel like there's no better time than right now if you want to do music, basically.
You just have to be better than ever.
Yes,
which goes against people's idea that musicians are worse than ever. Actually, because there's so much out there, you have to be more exceptional than ever.
Yes.
Which is great. It's really, really great. And yeah, the thing about looking to the past, it just reminds me of like, I've had girlfriends where it started to get bad, and then I'd think of my last girlfriend and be like, things were so much better. It's like, no, they weren't.
That's why you're still with her. Yeah.
No, they weren't. They weren't better. She sucked. Like they were not better. I'm just. Selective memory is what it is.
Which is like kind of a beauty of the mind, if we're being honest, but you got to see it for what it is.
Yes.
Yeah, you can definitely rewrite history very, very easily. But I think I hear this a lot. Like, I pay attention to what people say at all levels of the game and what is what the consensi, I don't know what the plural is about
Don't
certain
ask
things.
the French folk. I don't know.
I don't know what the word would be, but I feel like a lot of people complain about not getting paid royalties. But the thing about that is
You're gonna get a cent off your CD anyways.
the only people I see complaining about it are either superstars who legitimately did sell a bunch of records, and so it did affect them, but they're already rich as fuck. So
and they're making money other ways now too. It's not.
I mean, look,
it's been replaced.
Look, if I was in their shoes and I was losing millions of potential income, I'd be pissed too. But we can't forget that it's like made men, like talking about how they're making less millions now than the more millions they're making in the past. Or you see people whose music fucking sucks and they weren't going to make any money off of it anyways because no one listens to it. And there were going to be no royalties coming to them. Like, I don't see much in the middle from like working artists that are good who are like working hard. I don't see that very often, every once in a while, but I usually see either like the worst bands on earth or like the biggest bands on earth complaining about it. You don't really see it too much like in
the blue collar bands.
You just don't see it too often.
I could be wrong, but I feel like a lot of they lack business perspective in a lot of senses, meaning that they complain about Spotify. They're like, oh my God, we have all these people and I don't make money. Well, use the exposure, do something with it. Like if you do some sick merch and you promote stuff and whatever, like use that.
Yeah, but
like
it's an entitlement. It's the main character syndrome that always creeps in nowadays, where people think they're owed something because it used to be a different way or something. It's like it just is how it is now,
I get it though. Like I understand that they're like, wow, there's all these people and I made nothing out of it. I get that, but like I think people underestimate the exposure value. The fact that people are looking at you, like it's a big thing having an audience and people caring. People nowadays, they have 1 second. You have 1 second, like not even 1 second to catch their attention and it's gone. Like we were all like, you scroll to the next thing. So like if people care about what you do, I mean, you need to like take that opportunity, that moment, instead of complaining, oh my God, I would have made so much money. Like just use it
in streams that you wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, if you're independent, you actually can make money off of streaming.
Yeah.
So like it's not so small. Like the payouts aren't that tiny that if your music gets streamed that you'll make nothing. Like I know several artists who are not on a label, have never been on a label, who do very well off of streaming because they're not giving away 80% of it to a label. Yep. So when I hear unsigned artists saying that you don't make money off of streaming, the only thing I can think of is no one listens to your music, because I know several independent artists, Shadow of Intent being one of them. Like I know several artists that are 100% independent and they do very well off of streaming, and it is because they're not splitting it up. So when people think it's Spotify's, no, it's like if you're signed, it's two options. Like if you're not making money off of streaming, one, no one's listening to you, or two, you signed away 80% of your music.
100%.
360 deal for a ridiculous, like ludicrous amounts of money that there was no way that you were going to make back in the first place type thing.
Yeah. But there's sorry,
go ahead.
I was about to say it's so cool to see something like, like Shadow of Intent being they're getting like, they're pretty huge. I mean, like they're one of the biggest freaking deathcore bands right now, and they're killing it independent, and they're succeeded. They're awesome, and people are talking about them. Like to see that, that's, back in the days, never in my life I would have thought it was even something you can do. Like all the bands we were listening to all signed, like all on big labels and stuff like that. So there are more options now. So if you're complaining, it's either you made the wrong choices or you didn't know what was implied, because the option is there and there is proof of concept. these bands are proving it every day. So
Intervals, Pliny, like there's a whole long list of artists, and they don't make mainstream music. Like they make weird shit. Like Intervals is like, dorky fusion metal, and they fucking crush it. 100% independent, like
and
Pliny,
have been, it's not like one of those weird things where they're leeching off of their previous label success or something like that. Because we see that sort of stuff too now, right? But like a band like Intervals was like independent from the get go and was weird back then too.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not trying to like make people feel bad about their own music. Like it can also be that they just haven't caught on yet. Right? Everyone.
Don't give them hope, dude.
Yeah, well, look, everyone that's gonna get discovered or catch on at some point, they have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
But I do think it's important to just take an honest look at why the number you're seeing or the numbers you're seeing aren't what you want them to be. Like what is the reason? Like it's not because the world is stacked against you. Like there's other, like the world is a tough place, but enough people have done well in it to know that there is a path. Yeah. Also, by the way, I don't want to say that signing to labels is bad. Like we signed for a reason. You are giving away a lot, but Chris Wiseman from Shadow or like Aaron Marshall or Pliny, they are very special people. Yeah. I mean that in the best possible way. Like to be able to make music at that level, but then also have the business brain and be that organized. Like that's not the norm. No. Like these
by
are
far not the norm.
No, these are very gifted and like special, unique individuals who just have abilities that are not normal for musicians. So if like that's not you and that's nobody in your band, and then there's nobody in your band that's gonna be that person, like a label is a really good thing because they might take some of the money, but they do they provide the infrastructure, because if you don't have a label,
someone's got to do it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. And it's going to be you. So, I mean, you will make more money, but there's a shitload more work,
responsibilities,
there's a cost. There's a cost to everything. Sometimes it's just your own.
There's no one to save you basically, because a label sometimes you can be guided. You have like other options. Like if you're on your own, you're on your own. Like if there's no one to, it's on you if you make a mistake or you try something else. But I think it's a good point to mention that it's not easy at all. Like it's not because they are succeeding independent that it's just like, oh, we can do that. There's a lot of stuff involved for sure. Like you need these brains inside in your team so that it works, because not everyone can do that, I bet.
No, and look, like for instance, with Daath, we signed to a label. My independent friends were like, you got to do it independent. Like you could do it. You got the business brain. It's like, sure, but
do you want to do it?
Can I really add one more thing like that? Like I have URM and riffhard. That doesn't leave much time to actually work on the music side of the band. I can't. I can't. Like I have to be realistic.
Supposed to be not full-time gig, right? Like that was the kind of the goal going into it.
Yeah.
You would have had to, for sure. It would have been a choice, right? Like if you want to go independent, you would have to give up
something. Would have had to give.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to. It kind of back to what we were saying before about like the Metal Sucks blog about going in with eyes open. I think that's kind of the moral of the story is. There's no one way to make this happen, but you should just know what you're getting yourself into. Whether you do it on your own, you do it with a label, whatever, it's just there's pros and cons, but just know what you're getting yourself into and why.
Yep.
I'd have just maybe one last question for you if you've got the time. I know
Sure.
I don't want to take up too much
Oh
of your
my
day.
God, it flew by. Oh
Yeah, I'm
my.
good. I'm good.
Time flies when we're having fun. Yeah.
Yeah, but I wasn't expecting that. Oh my God. Okay.
But okay, so I'm curious to ask this, and we can make this as short or as long as you want. Because Yan and I talk about this often, but we rarely get to talk about this specifically with someone who knows anything about production. So, shitty recordings or raw recordings, if you will, versus overproduced recordings. Because for us, we kind of like, from being big fans of MySpace era of deathcore, a lot of it was shitty sounding, and that's kind of what made the sound like it was a part of the thing. And obviously there's a whole spectrum in between, and there's also a way of doing a really good production that sounds raw. Like we can understand that those things are also present, but where do you lie within? Like, do you as a producer enjoy rougher kind of recordings? Is that something that turns you off, or is that something you maybe attribute to some of
Maybe both.
success of some bands? Or
Well, what do you mean by overproduced, first of all?
Okay, sure.
But what does that even mean?
Sure. So I think there's just we'll talk in deathcore terms because that's usually that's what we know. I guess like when a band like The Art Is Murder came out with their album Hate, you would hear the Putney mix, and the guitars were chopped up in a way that it was like completely inhuman like levels of playing, right? I think that's usually what people tend to refer to when it's I think
super polished, super.
We went through a specific era where everything was super cut up. Some bands were doing almost note by note recording, and I know all these things are techniques. Like it's not like there's not a one way to do things. I think a lot of metal kind of became stale for a minute when that sort of thing started occurring in modern production versus the very stark contrast of the shitty bedroom recording, right?
Yep.
So I think just like now it's almost hard to do a shitty raw recording because of how good plugins are and shit. You're right. Like you have to try almost. Yeah. Like you gotta really go for it. Right. So I'd be curious to kind of just hear your thoughts on all of that. I guess there's no like specific question, but it's kind of like, maybe we can riff on that for a minute.
So like, I think that, what you're referring to, I don't consider that overproduced.
Sure.
I just consider it like inappropriate or something.
Sure. Okay.
Or a producer making the best out of a shitty situation.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you have a really great producer or mixer,
yeah,
and something comes out that doesn't fit with the rest of their catalog, you got to ask yourself, what miracle did they just have to perform in order to get it this good? Like, what were they presented? You never know. Like, it could be more impressive that it sounds the way it does than if it sounded like amazing and like, organic but huge or whatever. Just because what they were presented to work with was just a total pile of shit. And they had to spend like 90% of their budgeted time on just fixing things. So like, you never know unless you were there why it came out the way it came out. So I think that's important to like understand. But I think
I enjoy both for just so
same.
we're clear too.
I think it comes down to
enjoy
what's
a super
appropriate.
Clean recording, and I also enjoy something that's super raw.
If it
I have
suits the vibe.
a little bit of a harder time as time goes on with like really, really bad recordings. It's something but I'm a fan of both. Just so we're clear.
Well, there's this
It's always
like,
intent.
there's this idea about the really big, slick sounding stuff that it's like people say like templates or presets, and like, it's like, have you tried to mix something that sounds like a Zach Cervini mix? It's like fucking impossible. Like to make something sound huge and amazingly slick like that is like the height of skill. I mean, that is not some template. That is not some template. That is brilliance to be able to craft something to that level. So it comes down to, is it to your taste and does it fit the music? Because there's times where you'll hear certain artists get this really slick mix and it doesn't fit what they're about. Like, I don't know if you're into any black metal, but I like black metal a lot. Sure. And one of my favorite black metal bands is Satyricon. And they always have really rough sounding recordings. Very raw, not like basement level raw, but more like a raw rock band where like it's really not polished. And it really does sound like a drum set and a dude with an amp. And
a live room recording.
Yeah, not like a 4-track with one microphone, but still. And I think that like if their stuff sounded huge and polished, it would take away from how dark and honest it sounds. But I think that that's because they have the appropriate production style for their art. And just like with Necrophagist, if you want to talk about note by note, hyper edited, all that, that's how it should sound. I mean, that's exactly what their art should sound like. So I think it comes down to, is it appropriate for what you're doing? Like, you wouldn't want High on Fire to sound like Necrophagist. And I don't listen to Nickelback, but they have like some of the best mixes, right?
Dude, their mixes are insane, dude.
Exactly.
Hugest mixes, man. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's appropriate. It's super appropriate. Or the first Slipknot record sounding as like raw as it did is part of why it blew up. It's like, it all comes down to, does the production and the mix, is it the right fit for the music? And if it is, then awesome. I think when you have something that should be slick that sounds shitty or raw, or something that should be raw that sounds slick, that's where things get weird. And I think that if I don't know, yeah, sure, there's some weird time periods in heavy music where things started to sound super computerized, and like definitely some weird trends.
Early plug-in days was a trip.
Yeah, but also you just got to think about what the producers were dealing with. Like, that was not a high point for musicianship.
That's what they wanted too. That's what the musicians wanted too, right? Like it was an on-purpose thing. It's not like anyone did a bad job at their thing. That was just the wave, right? And that's what was available to them. But yeah, I think there's like some sort of sorry, Yan.
No, it's fine.
I think there's like some sort of a notion of natural progression that people have in their minds, like, oh, it's a newer band, it's going to sound shitty, and it's always going to sound better and better. And that kind of usually equates to raw to slick recording, as opposed to, just to your point, just having better mixes and better recordings, but still having it fit the vibe. Because I think it's happened in the past where bands have kind of like really switched up on a style and it hasn't really worked for them. In terms of production, right?
Sometimes it's not even their decision. That's the worst part. Sometimes the label is like, okay, this album is going to be polished, and the band themselves are like, I don't know, or fans really love, for example, the label is like, well, that's going to be it. And so I feel like there's so many external factors. And I was about to compare with movies. When CGI appeared, look at it right now, how horrible it is. But back in the days when we heard, like when we saw, people were like, "Oh, okay, wow, that's a new." It was new,
except for when they put it in the old Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the reaction was fairly extremely bad, and I get it. But at the same time, people who use, like, my example is always Lord of the Rings, right? Like, they didn't go on that road, and they use real makeup and that's why you can watch it right now, and it's still amazing.
Yeah, it's not dated.
So, it's still one of my favorite.
Or the first Jurassic Park.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the best example.
In my opinion, they're still better than what they're doing right now. So it's like, I feel like when there's a transition part, you have a decision to make of like, are we trying this stuff or do we stick with what works? And once this stuff works, we use it. And I feel like a lot of bands in music, while things were transitioning, producer had to deal with many different things and stuff. Like, I feel like that's why we have those periods where people are just like, why did they try that? Because it was a transition and they were trying.
The plug-in gent era was really a weird time for production. As much as it was advancing so fucking rapidly, most people were kind of like jumping on everything as fast as they could, and you hear it now. But,
I think it's part of it.
We had to go through it.
Yes.
Yeah, but the same thing that we were saying about Bring Me the Horizon, taking risks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Part of taking a risk is that it might not work. And so we think back to certain artists trying different things and it just being a colossal fail. But I mean, it could have also not been a colossal fail, but that's what happens when you risk, is it might not work. So, that's just part of it too, is if you think about the history of Metallica, for instance, love them or hate them, one of the things about them that's really admirable is how many risks they've taken and how fearlessly they've done it. Because they have done some shit that takes some serious balls to put out into the world, like that Lulu record or the Some Kind of Monster movie.
That was something for a band to put out.
I cannot believe that they let themselves be seen that way, but that's some fearless shit.
That would have broken up a lot have
Yes.
Like,
exactly.
despite what happens in the in the thing, like the aftermath of putting out a movie like that would have split up most bands.
Exactly. And so it takes balls, but like, that's the thing is, you gotta,
and we're talking about it now, right?
We're talking about Metallica taking risks. We're talking about Bring Me the Horizon taking risks. Like, taking risks is part of the deal, but it might not work. You might fall flat on your face. And I'm sure we can think of certain bands who have like tried a record where they changed things up and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And that's life.
Exactly. And I don't think, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but no one on top or very successful went safe. No one. Like, you have to take risk if you want big rewards, I think. Like, it works like that in finance. Like, of course, there are some exceptions. Sometimes people are just like, it works. But most of the time, as you said, Bring Me the Horizon, always, it's so impressive. Always worked, honestly, but kind of always risking nonetheless. Like, they took risk the whole time. So sometimes you look at some bands or artists, looks easy, but they took a lot of freaking risk. It could have gone sideways many times. So part of taking risk is you might not work. Doesn't mean that they suck. Just took a risk. So like,
or that it's over, right?
Yeah,
like, there's
exactly.
always redemption that's possible.
It's a step. It's a chapter. It's a part of it. Like, look at any businesses. Like, my favorite movies personally is the movies showing you the success of a big thing, like Founder with McDonald, or like The Social Network with Facebook. Those movie, like on Steve Jobs, whatever. Like, the one thing that they all have in commons, things have gone south many times for them. Like, it was horrible and people were almost laughing at them. And then they made their waves somehow to the top, and people look at them like it was easy. It wasn't. Like, they took risk, and it was difficult. So they were the crazy people until they made it. Yeah. They were a joke in some industries, and now they become the industry. So like, like the Metallica example and stuff like that. Like, people were hating on them. Still on top, like still one of the biggest things. So it's, I don't know, it goes to tell, like, risk comes with, it's called a risk for a reason. It might be horrible or terrible. People might laugh, but still takes balls, and, that's how it works.
You got to do it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, man, I think that's kind of a great note to end it on. I want to thank you, man, for doing this and coming on to the show, man. This was a really
super fun.
really cool conversation, and it's always fun for us to have the podcast crossovers whenever it happens. So I appreciate you coming on, man. And I don't know if you have anything to plug before we leave. Actually, if you got any news or anything that you want to
that you can share, or maybe you can't.
Just go to daathofficial.com.
There we go.
urm.academy, riffhard.com. You know, if you want to learn how to produce metal or play metal or just listen to metal, all those three got you covered.
There we go. All right. Well, again, thank you for taking the time, man.
Thank you guys very much.
Very fun.
Absolutely. Well, I'll talk to you soon. All right.
All right. Thanks for having me very much.
You're welcome, man.
Of course.
Take it easy.